Okay, year 10. Right. Again, pause this screen. Let's see how we do. Let's pretend it's the start of a lesson. This is my starter activity to get your brains back into it. So I'll give it a pause now. Have a think. Right, I'm going to go through the answers. So if you haven't paused it, why do you not pause it? You could have checked if you know stuff. That's what it's all about. If you did pause it, well done. Well done. You will get your reward eventually. Anyway, number one, which two methods are used to ensure fishing is done sustainably? Sustainably means it can be done over and over again. And in the previous lesson, we went through the fact that you can control net sizes, so the little juvenile fish escape, so they can become the adults of the future and breed and replace the population. And also, it is what's it? Oh yeah, quarters. So a quarter is a legally binding amount that you can catch, and therefore they have to throw back the ones that are over their quarter. Okay, so yeah, quarters and net sizes, two ways in which we control the um, the population of fish, and therefore that keeps it being fished sustainably. It's quite hard to count fish. How many cod are there in the North Sea? It's difficult. That's why you need highly paid ecologists to go around with sonar on boats to try and estimate population sizes, doing a sampling technique. Number two, which fungus is used to make mycoprotein? Again, it's in the syllabus, you need to know it. It's called fusarium. And they have actually asked that once before. I saw it in an old past paper question. Number three, why is heat produced when culturing fungal cells to make mycoprotein? Well, it's because I'm in desperation now. I can't think of the answer. What's the answer? Oh, yeah, they do lots and lots of respiration. Remember, we bubble air through. So they do aerobic respiration. And aerobic respiration, it releases lots of energy. Some of that can be used for useful things like growth, to join like molecules together. But yeah, heat is produced as well. So it's heat due to respiration. If it was worth 2 marks, you'd say aerobic respiration. And if it's why do they do make lots of heat, it's because they do lots of aerobic respiration because they're bubbled through with air. They're always next to their food supply. They're growing quickly. And then define biodiversity. But this is what we're trying to maintain. A high biodiversity area is beautiful. Yeah, it's why people watch nature programs and things like that. So there'd be lots of different species in a habitat. Whereas a farmer who's growing crops wants low biodiversity. They want a crop that's just the crop. They want no pests there. They want it nice and nice and one species-y, so they can harvest it. But trying to maintain that is really difficult. And some kind of think, well, we'll give up on trying to keep just one crop there. We'll plant hedgerows as well. We'll encourage birds to be there, and then the birds can eat the pests that eat the crops. So yeah, there's numerous ways of doing it. But yeah, biodiversity, it's always a word to use in your answer, like respiration. What's the downside of using pesticides? There'll be a reduction in biodiversity. Right. Today we're going to do the threats to our food security. It's a little bit of the syllabus. We're going to pop this down in our books. Don't do it yet. On the next slide, I'll show this screen again. So I'm just going to try to kind of question you to get to what are the threats to our food security. And it's hard to imagine in our country because we're a rich country. A bit poorer now after the COVID outbreak, but we're still relatively rich, and therefore we don't worry about being fed. But in different parts of the world, food is less secure. But there are threats. So I'm going to give you little clues to it. So, number one, it's getting bigger and bigger, especially in Africa. So what's getting bigger and bigger in the world, especially in Africa? Well, it's human population. Yeah, the human population is increasing, and it's increasing. If you put on, a website of population growth in the world, most of the top 20 are countries in Africa. Okay, not saying that that's bad or good, but the more human beings there are, and therefore the bigger the demand there is for food. It goes without saying, and that's a threat to our food security. Number two, So there's a more demand for this biomolecule. Plants make this by using glucose and nitrates. We then digest this into amino acids. So what molecule am I talking about? Hopefully you got it. Yeah, there's changing diets. There's more demand for protein. As countries get richer, they want protein, generally, on average. There's someone who won't, but on average, the population of China are consuming a lot more protein now than they did 20 years ago because China's got richer, people have more money, and therefore they can afford to buy protein. So there's a bigger demand for protein. So if I'm a farmer, I can sell my beef more easily. In fact, if I own a lot of land, it's currently covered in forest, I can chop down that forest, grow grass, get some cows on it because there's now a market for the protein. Okay, so yeah, I can sell that beef, so that goes to China. They get their burgers, but I've chopped down a forest to do that. I've lost biodiversity. I've lost some forest. Okay, so there's an impact on it. 3, it says these evolve and therefore reduce the yield that a farmer produces. The insecticides they use is no longer effective. Well, insecticides kill insects. Ellicicide would kill an Ellis. Yeah. So this is just saying that if insecticides no longer work, then the insects must be resistant to the insecticide, so they've evolved it. So this is like new pests and pathogens that are evolving that are affecting farming. There's one in the news. I must have dreamt it. Again, I'm getting confused now with dreams and reality. It's been so long. We're slowly mad in these tricky times. But yeah, I'm sure there was a new banana fungus that was destroying bananas. It might have been another fruit. But anyway, yeah, there's new. That's a threat. If a new disease comes along and wipes out potatoes like it did for the potato famine in Ireland, going back into history, then people can starve. Next one, due to global warming. What effects can global warming have? Well, if it's a warmer atmosphere, then we get a change in climate. We get droughts, we get floods. So all that is having an effect. So yeah, environmental change, there's failing rains or there's too much rain. Yeah, any of those can cause problems. I know a few years ago there was loads of floods and it was like crisp manufacturers were like struggling to get decent potatoes to make crisps. And I did notice a slight drop off in the quality of my McCoy crisps that I love dearly. My salt and vinegar McCoys. There was like those don't seem quite as good as normal. Again, seems a bit petty, but yeah, again it affects things. Next, number 5. These need to be added to soil for healthy growth, and as demand increases, they cost more. So what do we put on soils to make the crops grow better? To maybe make more of this biomolecule here, to make more protein, need more nitrates. Yeah, so there's a cost of agricultural inputs, it says in our syllabus, which we know as fertilizers. If everyone wants more fertilizer, then the cost goes up. Yeah, the fertilizer factories I can't just make another fertilizer factory like that. Incidentally, it's fertilizer factories that I think, was it last year or the year before, there was a drop off because there was a drought and therefore people didn't want agricultural inputs because there was a lack of water, so the plants weren't growing anywhere. So the fertilizer factories shut down, and the fertilizer factories are the ones that also, as a byproduct, make CO2 for fizzy drinks, and therefore there was a big panic that we weren't getting fizzy drinks a couple of years ago, which was mainly affecting kind of beer suppliers rather than anything else. I guess now there's a lack of demand for fizziness because all the pubs are closed and they use CO2 to kind of get the beer from the cellar into the above ground to the people who are buying it. So maybe there's a glut now of CO2 left because I guess the agricultural inputs are still being used because there's not a lack of water at the moment because it's been quite nice for plant growing. We did have a dry spell, but then it's been wet, dry, which is ideal for a lot of crops. I know my lawn's growing quite well at the moment. Lastly, 6, it says the oil price also goes up when this happens. Again, it's gone down massively because of this virus. But a few years ago there was conflicts in North Africa that drove it up. There's been Middle East conflicts and wars that have driven up the price. So yeah, all of these affect um, our food security. So in your books, you don't need to write all these down. I would pick your favourite 2 of these because, but if you're being thorough, pop them all down. Yeah, this is what we need to know, that there's threats to our food security, and it can be any of these 6. Human population increase, which I think is probably my favourite, because I think it's probably the cause of a lot of problems on Earth. Is just more and more humans. It's what causes people to then move, to migrate, and therefore there's political problems in countries and things. But yeah, human population increase. Yeah, this greater demand for protein. Yeah, more people equals more demand for protein, and richer countries as people get richer, which is brilliant news for the people. That puts an increased demand on the protein. That puts an increased demand on the parts of the world that we haven't exploited yet. So it has a knock-on effect. It's hard for us to say, well, people in this country don't have protein because you've never had it before, but we're going to carry on eating protein. It's a bit hypocritical. Yeah, new pests and pathogens. Again, when we do about evolution in year 11, we'll meet that again anyway. Environmental change, again, linked to global warming. Make sure you can link those in. Cost of agricultural inputs like fertilizers. Again, we've been doing about that and the downsides of them with eutrophication. And yeah, conflicts of war have probably been my least one I'd worry about, because I can't link other bits of biology to it. I like to be able to link other bits of biology to things, because then if it's a bigger question, I can say more about it. And conflicts of war, I kind of stop there. Whereas the rest, I was getting on to more information, which is really what we want to do in a biology exam. The biggest question we can get asked is a 6 marker, and therefore, yeah, I just got an email. Ooh. It's never good news, is that noise. It's never good news, is the I've got email noise. Oh, I used to look forward to it. Right, so that's it for new learning. So yeah, pause that screen, copy them down, maybe miss off conflicts and war if you wish. It's the same that's in your syllabus anyway. So yeah, right. What you're going to do for the rest of the lesson, I've done explain everything to go through that homework. There's a couple of questions on there that you need to pay particular attention to, as I say on that, about the how to measure light intensity and compare it, and just reading questions carefully. Where I've just done your reports, and that's what I put on a lot of them. Is just you'll get better at explaining, at exam technique the more you practice exam technique, and that's why next year sees any chance to kind of practice your exam technique, do well in tests, get some confidence, etc. Right, so I'm going to leave you to have a go at these. Again, you can pause the screen and zoom in and things on your fancy phones, I'm sure. So, and I shall go through these questions in a minute. Again, you can just ignore it and kind of just go through it yourself. But there's great confidence you'll gain by having a go, pausing it now, jotting some answers down roughly, and then seeing how well you would have done. So I'm just going to carry on going through them now. Here we go. Number 1, name the fungus that is high in protein that is used to make corn. It's Fusarium. It was at the start of the lesson. If you haven't got that now, 5 minutes later, then retention. You learn things by repetition. The organelle that makes protein back to year 9 is ribosomes. We're going to we do an entire lesson on that in year 11 about how it does that, how it reads the genetic code to make the exact protein you want. Number 3, describe how protein is digested in the human body. So what part of the body does proteins get digested? Is it the mouth? No. Is it the stomach? Yes. Stomach, 1 mark. What enzyme is released in the stomach? Protease, 2 marks. What's the product of protein digestion? Amino acids, 3 marks. I could also say that protease is made by the pancreas and by the small intestine as well. Okay. And then, you know, if you do A-level biology, you discover that it's not quite as simple as that. There's you know, there's actually 3 protease enzymes that work in slightly different ways to speed up the process. Again, if you're thinking about doing A levels, then at least biology, it is definitely more of the same. There's not a lot of like brand new topics. It's just more detail, and more detail for me is more interesting. Number 4, describe how the products from the digestion of protein is absorbed into the I should say blood there, sorry, against the concentration gradient. Right, never mind. To go back now. So yeah, hopefully we're saying, because it's against the concentration gradient, we should be saying it's active transport absorbs amino acids using energy from respiration. So I mentioned respiration and active transport on 4. Sorry about that one. So you might struggle on 4. New pathogens bit. Name a virus and a fungus that infects some plants. So virus, V. So that's TMV, tobacco mosaic virus, know it as TMV, and a fungus that was rose black spot. Both are the 2 that's on the syllabus. If you got them, if you dredge them back, then really well done. But Year 11, you know, December time, that's when we normally have mocks. So in the next lessons, we're going to do a bit of new stuff, but also a bit of revision, but probably mainly of Year 9 stuff, just to kind of recap your memories a bit. That will help revising a bit when you get back in Year 11, so to help your mocks go better, hopefully. You know, if we're in school now, we would have been having Year 10 exams, and we would have been testing all this stuff anyway, so it's our version of doing that. Number 2, the virus causes loss of chlorophyll. Yeah, TMV destroys chlorophyll. Explain why an infected plant will grow slower. So less chlorophyll means it can absorb less light. If it can absorb less light, it can perform less of what process? Photosynthesis. Therefore, it makes less of the product of photosynthesis, glucose, and therefore, what is glucose used for? Therefore, glucose can't be formed into starch for growth, or can't be used in respiration for energy, or can't be made into cellulose for new cell walls, or can't be formed into amino acids to make proteins for growth. Any of those, any page Mr. Council stuff. And we've done that question before as well. So if you got 4 marks on that, well done. But it should be easy. Yeah, light, photosynthesis, glucose, cellulose, 4 marks. Environmental change. Which 2 gases are increasing in the atmosphere and are linked to global warming? Yeah, so carbon dioxide and methane. If you're American, carbon dioxide and methane. Number 2, give a reason for the increase of each gas. Why is there more CO2 in the atmosphere? Well, we could say there's, I don't want to say more respiration, ideally less photosynthesis because trees are being cut down. Or I could say there's more burning of fossil fuels that releases CO2. Probably burning of fossil fuels is the main reason why it's increasing, but we're also chopping down forests for those cows to feed on grass. And therefore there's less photosynthesis. Why is there more methane? Well, that's because there's more anaerobic decay of detritus. So, you know, and that happens in rubbish dumps. You know, that my bin goes to landfill, most of it does. And if there's any kind of organic material in there, that's going to decompose, and then methane's produced. So yeah, so there's loads of methane being produced from all that kind of stuff. It comes from naturally as well. So it comes from any kind of decomposing stuff. So you can also talk about it's linked with farming as well. And these are the 2 that's on the syllabus. So you can say that cows, so there's more farming of cows, therefore they're belching more methane. So cows produce methane, you can say. So more farming of cows. And you can also go for more farming of more growing of rice. Because rice grows in water, is anaerobic decay. So rice cultivation, breeding more cows, and also just our waste, but those first 2 are better. Suggest how global warming is linked to a threat to food security. So that's what we've just done. So what would you say there? Well, there's more. You say there's more droughts, therefore loss of harvest, or more floods, loss of harvest. And for how can we be confident that global warming is due to human activity? Tricky one, this. And it's really just historical evidence of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, that we know how much CO2 was in the atmosphere previously, because we have ice core data. So little air bubbles get into ice that get into glaciers, so we can drill down and measure the CO2 in like older air pockets, and therefore we've measured it over time, and we've seen there's a strong correlation between human activity and increase in CO2. The actual rate of increase kind of mirrors the human activity spike. There's been a measurable decrease due to COVID-19 lockdown in the atmosphere. The rate of increase has been lower, and it's been measurable because there's been no planes flying. People were locked down. The roads were quiet around the globe, and therefore that's measurable. So there's a definite link there. So on number 4, you just talk about evidence from historical evidence and measured now. Cost of agricultural inputs. Name the mineral iron given to plants to increase their protein production. Is it on this here somewhere anywhere? No, it's not. Anyway, it's just nitrates. Nitrates are needed to make amino acids. Lack of which mineral causes chlorosis or white patches? That's magnesium. Well, one or two of you talked about that in the homework. In error, but you shall mention it. Suggest 2 things a farmer should consider before applying fertilizers to soil. Farmer interested in money, as we all are. Therefore, cost effectiveness is one of them. Is the cost worth the extra yield that you'll get? And 2, they need to be aware of the environmental impact. Because if it's going to rain after they put on the fertilizer, it'll be washed from the soil, so they'll lose what they paid for anyway. Don't have to squint to say that, but they'd lose money. It's a squintable sentence. And they would cause eutrophication in the water, which means that otters die. Remember those lovely otters? The fish die, the invertebrates die, all that. The aerobic animals die. We lose biodiversity, and therefore nobody wants that. Literally nobody. Even like master criminals wouldn't want otters to die. Okay, so hopefully you've again, you can worry that you've beat yourself up that you haven't got full marks and you didn't know that. The aim of all of this is to find what you don't know. If we've just confirmed that you know it all, well, sorry for wasting your time a bit. If we've found something that you don't know, that's what you need to embrace. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to diagnose what you know and what you don't know. And during this lockdown, it's just really hard and infuriating for me to be able to do it, because I don't know what you're not knowing as easily. So last bit anyway. So again, we'll just do these together. So finishing off, and my voice is dying. Through lack of practice. Suggest 2 reasons why there is growing demand for protein. So richer countries, increased population size. 2 reasons. Suggest 4 ways in which the demand for protein can be met. How can we get more protein? Where can we get more protein from? And then we think back to things that we've done. So we can just fish more. There's fish out there. Why not just take more fish? Well, if we take more fish by having smaller net sizes or having better, easier, more friendly quotas, it might not be sustainable. So we can't just fish more willy-nilly. Willy-nilly is not a scientific term, because it has implications. We can't just take more fish. We can't make more fish. We can more land use for farming animals. Let's just do that. But where do we get the land from? Well, land that's good at growing crops for feeding animals tends to be also good at growing trees. So it tends to be covered in forests. that have got, you know, orangutans in them and things. So not in this country. Yeah, so easier said than done. I can't just generate more land, but you know, people are working on that. They're trying to get vertical farming going. I think in the Netherlands they have vertical farms, or you know, using kind of um, again, that doesn't farm your animals, but it farms your crops to feed the animals. So possibly. Anyway, we could make more microproteins. Let's all switch over to corn or eat corn once a week. Yeah, rather than having you know, lamb hot pot, corn hot pot. Yeah. Again, it sounds like I'm advertising corn, but that would, you know, it's more efficient, is that? Therefore, it's a way of doing it, but it doesn't taste like proper meat. It's healthier. Do I want to be healthier? All that. There's lab grown meat. Remember that? I think you showed a video on that. Again, you know, this is a really exciting area, is lab grown meat, because if we can grow meat in a lab, then I don't have an animal walking around wasting energy moving, wasting heat energy in respiration, feeding inefficiently. So yeah, lab grown meat's a really exciting area, where again, we can really increase the efficiency, and therefore we'll be able to feed more people. Again, it's an area that's really big in the US, is lab grown meat. We can make animal farming more efficient. We could intensify it, so stop them moving, keep them warm, etc. But that has ethical issues associated. People might not want to eat meat that's been raised with low animal welfare standards. So you know, all of these are ways of solving the problem, but they have downsides. You know, there's something a bit ucky. It's got the uck factor as lab grown meat. You know, I'm basically eating a muscle tumor from an animal. Yeah, so I've taken some cells from the animal, grown them up, and they kind of keep reproducing. So they're kind of in stem cell mode, a bit like a tumor, and then they have to like put it together, and that's like, oh, I don't like the sound of that, but I'm happy with the sound of taking a sheep to abattoir to be slaughtered and then eating it that way. It's like our brains have to kind of cope with it and get used to it. Who knows? You know, maybe the people of the future will massively frown on us and pull down statues of us. You know, all those meat eaters who were eating meat, who were kind of like who we put statues up to for other things, will be torn down because we found out that they used to eat meat. Yes, yeah, that person who was a hero, he ate meat or she ate meat, therefore pull down that statue. Anyway, you can soon take it into politics. And next year we'll meet genetic modification, where we can make animals grow faster, we can make plants grow better with genetic modification. Genetic engineering it's called as well, and that's got pros and cons, but we'll meet that next year. And that's done. There's a GM crop to finish with, golden rice, high in vitamin D, good for your immune system apparently. So I'll stop there. Hopefully you've learnt something today. That's the whole point. I see. I've got a smaller video today, so hopefully that wasn't too distracting.